Okay, so a new film has come about me in early creation. I'm in the process of moving, so I don't have my note cards. One note that I want to make to all the filmmakers is David Lynch has come up with an idea. I don't know if he's the only one. I'm sure he got the idea from another person. I'm sure this idea has been going around. Now, I've read many screenplay books, and I've read many approaches to starting a film. Um, Probably about three or four screenplay books, and I've talked to other screenwriters. And David Lynch is a great screenwriter and a filmmaker, and a great director. He's probably a better director and filmmaker than, but he's a very good screenwriter. Originality, and the one thing that he believes in doing is taking 70 note cards. So you take 70 note cards, and you begin to write down ideas because a film is all about ideas. It's an idea, then another idea, another idea. Oh, that's an interesting idea. That's another interesting idea. You got to that point. That's another interesting idea. Anyway, so I am in pre-production for another film right now. I'm not going to talk about the current film I'm in pre-production, but the future film that I'm starting to develop inside of me is called The Filmmaker. Now, I wanted to go off on a side project and make another film called Grace, which was a mixed martial arts fighting film, kind of based on Rocky. Sylvester Stallone, who's a great writer, wrote Rocky, and I think he is up for Best Picture for that a long time ago. It was a wonderful film. He wrote the screenplay and was starred in it and everything. And the Grace, of course, was about mixed martial arts and an Apache, a fighter that was an American fighter that's based on Hoist Gracie. I am going to get to that one eventually. That's a very hard one for me. I know a little bit about jiu-jitsu because of training that I've had in jiu-jitsu. That's a very difficult one for me. I think it's because I'm dealing with the Apache tribe. Um, and also it's an American tribe too, meaning it's an American Apache. He's not full-blooded Apache, just like I'm not full-blooded Apache. But he ends up fighting a guy named, I believe the character's name is Saint Patty the Great, and it's a real Rocky Balboa Creed kind of thing. Only it's the character's name is Grace Lippin, and he goes by GL. Grace is his first name, which is a female name kind of in a way, and he's embarrassed. He doesn't let anyone call him Grace. It's a little secret. Nobody knows that it bothers him, but his father, the father character's in it. He has several brothers that's in it, and he makes them call him GL, which is his initials for his name, Grace Lippin. Lippin is actually an Apache name. Lippin, Lippin, I believe. I think it's pronounced Lippin, but it's Grace Lippin, and GL is the protagonist, and he's going to have to fight. Eventually, he has to fight Saint Patty the Great, which is this great Irish fighter, or English Irish, I don't know. And he's basically obviously based on Shamrock, who Hoist Gracie had to fight Shamrock. I think GL or Grace meets a woman, and there's a love interest story and stuff like that. All these ideas I've started putting down on note cards, and I just don't feel the passion behind that film right now. I'm in my 40s. I began training for it, but there's something about it right now that is throwing me off. So it's on hold. But it's something that I think I want to eventually pursue and write, and it's one of the ones that I have on note cards. The film that we're in pre-production with right now is almost completed in script form. So it is already being sent out. It's already going on. I'm going to keep that on the hush. So that's that. Grace, which is another film that I do want to eventually work on, is in very early stages of beginning to write. I'm kind of the filmmaker where I want the script to be there for the sake of organization and to clearly tell the story. So that those are on hold, and the filmmaker is a new script that I think I am going to eventually make. And I want to be more mature at the process of making films, and I want to learn from the current film I'm working on now, and I want to be able to be very mature in the process of making it, so that I can pull off the Filmmaker. Now, the Filmmaker is kind of in the same limelight as Fellini's 8.5, where it talks about a filmmaker, and there's many films out there. There's Cinema Paradiso. I think that's more of talks about like a projectionist. There's many films out there that talk about a filmmaker. I think Last Tango in Paris has a moment where there's a filmmaker. He's running around like a young Bertolucci kind of thing, with the film camera, and he's the love interest of Marlon Brando's main character in Last Tango in Paris. The French lady, is in love with this young filmmaker, or they have like a little bunny rabbit relationship or puppy dog love. There's other films that talk about filmmakers that I'm going to also begin to watch. But the filmmaker's premise is very easy. It's a divorcee, a man that has lost his wife and his children. His wife just ran off on him. And I know that there's a new thing on Netflix now called The Naked Director. And yes, I've seen some of that. The idea that he goes into this obsession with making films in the porn industry and things like that, and that's what The Naked Director is about. It's not that like that. This is more on the lines of 8.5, Fellini kind of thing. Well, anyway, what ends up happening is why his wife leaves and he doesn't know where she's at. He's tried to call the police. The police have told him to stay away. She doesn't want to have anything to do with him. So he goes right into filmmaking. And maybe in the beginning parts of this movie, you see their relationship and how he's kind of drawn to filmmaking, either through his phone or through writing. Okay, through the phone or writing. Okay. So in the Filmmaker, and I'm thinking about using my own name too, as well as the other actors. Rather than using character names, I would use their real names. But I would change, their behaviors. So the Filmmaker begins to go out in public with his film camera, which is his phone. He uses an iPhone. And he begins to start stuff with other people, like confrontation, like fuck you kind of thing. Now, Harmony Korine did this with Fight, and it got a little bit of attention before Harmony Korine ended up making Gummo and things like that. Harmony Korine's a really good subject to study too. Fight, he would pick fights with people and they would film it, and then the guys would beat up the filmmaker or whatever. But this is something where he goes out in the public and he starts stuff with other people. Like he just goes up to people and fuck you, fuck you, fuck you and your fucking wife and your fucking husband and your fucking family. And he's yelling at like pretty much like old ladies and wives in the cars. And he's yelling at all these people in the world. He's pulling up to rednecks and trucks. And, fuck you, I'll fucking kick your ass. Fuck you, I'll kick your fucking ass. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. He just says fuck you over and over again. And he ends up getting hit at a fast food place. This guy ends up hitting him in the chin, and he gets some hits on YouTube, and one goes viral, so YouTube starts paying him. He's the fuck you man, that's kind of like his character. He just goes to people and says fuck you, and starts a fight, and it's like a fighting thing. So he starts getting ratings, just like at the Coliseums back in the day. It's that kind of feel. He's out in the Coliseums and he's out there and he's out there fighting like a gladiator kind of thing. But only he's doing it with his camera to get ratings, so he can get success, so he can get power. And maybe in his mind, he thinks that if he gets this power, he can earn his wife and family back if he fights for it, So in the Filmmaker, the character's name is Cole, and he has these two friends that are twins, and those become kind of like his gang. Think of Clockwork Orange. And he's the head of the gang. So in the Filmmaker, he turns his power of filmmaking from the public to spying on his ex-wife. So it's got a little bit of, the projectionist, which is another one I'm working on, a little bit of stalking kind of thing going on. And he finds out that his wife is actually sleeping with her best friend's husband, and they're doing like a threesome kind of thing. So she's sleeping with her best friend's husband with her best friend. Okay. And he finds out about it. The filmmaker finds out. So he gets his goons. And the guy is basically like I don't know, like a welder, maintenance kind of guy. Like maybe he does electrician. He's kind of a handyman guy. Sometimes he goes off and does welding. Sometimes he goes off and he's like an electrician, things like that. So I think his wife, I'll probably call her Angelica. That's what I always call the wife character in a lot of my stuff. I think she thinks that he doesn't deserve her love anymore, but this other guy who's this welder and a worker, or this electrician or whatever, does deserve her love, because he's like a maintenance worker, or he's like a laborer. And her husband, who was her ex-husband, is more like kind of like a writer. Now, in the filmmaker, Cole's character, I think he may have been in the banking industry or something like. He was in like an industry like that, banking industry or something, and he started becoming this writer and eventually this filmmaker. So she's like, well, he no longer does. Angelica says, Cole no longer deserves me, so I'm going to go sleep with this other man who is the husband of my best friend. So the enemy has obviously got involved and destroyed their marriage, and now adultery's at hand. And so the filmmaker wants to respond to this. So a plot starts to thicken, and the filmmaker decides to develop, or to aim, I guess the word aim might be a word. He begins to direct. There we go. He begins to direct all his anger to getting revenge on this welder electrician guy. His name could be called Brent. So he takes the goons and they capture him. They kidnap him. It seems like that's kind of a common thing that's in my films, kidnapping. But he kidnaps him, and they take him somewhere like a warehouse. I think a warehouse. They take him to like a warehouse. Probably not far from where the welder electrician guy works. And he knows that this guy has slept with his wife. He knows. So there's a monologue that I've done with using imaginary monologue as a technique I learned at the actor studio and method acting and stuff. There's a monologue that came out of me thinking about this moment of what I would do. And the filmmaker gets him right there in this warehouse, and the goons are with him. The two goons are basically, they're twins, but they're actors, okay? And he met them in the theater world or whatever. And they flock to him because he's the filmmaker. And they do anything he says. He's the director. So he gets him in this warehouse, and the goons are with him. And he tells him, he says, look, I know that you slept with my wife. I know that you really slept with my wife. I know that you did. God made me a certain way. He made me a certain way. So what I'm going to do to you is only going to honor him, God. You went out and you really slept with my wife. I only imagined sleeping with yours, just like we all do. We all imagine sleeping with other men's wives. We all really do that. We're all that sick because we're all enemies of God. But you really physically slept with my wife. So there has to be payment And as you know, I'm not really flipping you off here, am I? If I was flipping you off, that would be like that. But I'm not flipping you off. You have to pay a penalty for sleeping with my wife. You have to pay something for it, physically. I didn't sleep with yours. I imagined it, just like we all imagine. But you really physically slept with my wife, so you're going to pay a penalty. And then he looks over to the goons. Goons walk over, they grab his hand, and with a pair of shears, garden shears, they remove his ring finger from his hand. They cut it off, so he no longer can wear his own wedding ring for his own wife that he cheated on, because he slept with the filmmaker's wife with his own wife. They did a threesome, you know. It was kind of kinky kind of thing. But anyway, the goons remove the ring finger. Now I was thinking about the piano, because Jane Campion wrote the piano, and the jealous husband for the main character sleeping with Baines, which is Harvey Keitel's character, with an axe, you know, they cut off the index finger, which I thought was really cool in the piano too. Was they show the play, and they show that moment with the axe going down, and in the play version, if you got to see the movie, but they show the play of a shadow coming down and chopping off the finger, and you know, and it happens in the piano. So I think in the Filmmaker, there's something like this. There's a foreshadowing, right? That it happens. So the goons cut off his finger, and I think they send that finger, you know, 3 or 4 day mail to his wife, to let them know not to mess with him. But it was like a 3-4 day mail, so by the time that finger gets to, you know, they may wrap it up with something that's just like paper or something where it'll rot, you know, in the heat. Or they may let it sit out for a few days to make sure that the finger rots. So by the time that the wife receives the finger's completely rotten and it can't be saved. So they send a member of the husband's body, which is the finger, to his wife, because they wanted to commit a threesome and betray. Now the filmmaker's older than this younger couple that his wife Angelica went off to and had a threesome with. So Angelica's probably like 10 or 15 years younger. So they also kind of despise him because he's older, and he has had children. I think the filmmaker has children with her and stuff, and they despise the fact that God actually loves the filmmaker. He loves him. God loves the filmmaker. And so they despise the fact that God loves the filmmaker, and they're jealous of him because God does love him. And so God is honored, or the filmmaker honors God by removing this man's ring finger because of adultery and for committing horrible adultery. And then he sends it to his wife, so his wife understands that there's a penalty to pay for something like that, for getting into a threesome and with another, and disrespecting another man, and kind of not including them in the party kind of thing. And that there's consequences for another person's actions. Okay. Now you got to realize the filmmaker's a rebel, man. He's out there, he's saying "fuck you" to people, and he's a bad guy. I mean, at times, kind of like the Joker. You know, Joaquin, how he portrayed the Joker was kind of like a villain to the people in a way, and then he becomes kind of a hero. I think also maybe they might film what they do to the man to let them know that this is the price to be paid for adultery. There's consequences for it or something. And then I think I like using the idea of like using garden shears. You know, they use these garden shears to remove the finger. And then there's the mail. I like the idea of them mailing it like FedEx or UPS like 3 days. So they wrap it up with paper. Of course, it's going to smell, so they may put spice or something in there, or something to keep them from smelling the rotten finger, because they want it to be rotten. They want the finger to arrive to the cheating, not the cheating wife, but to the original wife. It's also just completely disgracing their marriage to a highest degree. So when that finger arrives, it is rotten. It cannot be saved. So that member of his body will be removed for the remaining of his life for messing with the filmmaker. So the filmmaker also is about power, dictatorship kind of thing, almost in a way. It's a great idea because they do have these YouTubers and these filmmakers that are out there really making really good films. And I think this one would be shot, it could be black and white, like the projection is mostly black and white. I might do this one black and white too. And then like there could be moments done, selected moments in color, like the amputation of the cheating guy's or the adulterer's finger, the ring finger and things like that. But anyway, these are some ideas that are in the next film that I think I may attack, which is Filmmaker. And it's got a little bit of Rocky in it, because from this thing that he does, he becomes very famous. He like ends up on a talk show, and a filmmaking talk show, and I guess maybe he masks himself for the amputation of the finger. The guy doesn't die. The guy that cheats on his wife with the adulterer doesn't die. But he does lose his finger. He loses something. Because we don't get away with things like that. We have to pay a price in one way or another. But he doesn't get caught. So he masks himself, and probably the goons too. I think they just wear, what I liked what Bridget did with the Richards is just that black mask. It's like a formless mask that they could all wear. You can hear him talking, but he has this black mask that he wears. Same with the two goons. They can wear the black mask. So when they send it out, they pretend that it's